Far below the reach of sunlight, in a realm of crushing pressure and endless night, there drifts a creature that seems to belong more to a nightmare than to the natural world. Cloaked in deep crimson, with eyes the color of frozen glass and a webbed skirt of tentacles that spreads around it like a velvet cape, the vampire squid glides through the blackness of the deep. When faint traces of light catch its body, it seems to smolder with a ghostly fire, and it is easy to understand why early naturalists gave it a name that sounds like something conjured from folklore. Its scientific title, Vampirotuthis infernalis, translates roughly to the vampire squid from hell, a label that captures the eerie impression it leaves, but says almost nothing true about the gentle animal beneath the costume. That ghostly fire is no illusion. Across its body, the vampire squid carries organs capable of producing light, and when a threat approaches, it can release a shimmering cloud of glowing particles into the water. This is the deep sea's answer to ink. Near the surface, squids and octopuses defend themselves by squirting dark clouds that hide their escape, but a curtain of black ink would be pointless in a world already drowned in darkness. So this animal evolved the opposite strategy. Instead of hiding in shadow, it blinds its attackers with a burst of confusing sparks, a glittering distraction that buys just enough time to vanish into the void. It is one of the most elegant survival tricks in the entire ocean, and it hints at how strange life becomes once you descend beyond the point where the sun can follow. The vampire squid makes its home in what scientists call the twilight zone, roughly 3,000 feet down, where the last thin memory of daylight finally surrenders to permanent night. To live here, an animal cannot simply endure the darkness. It must be rebuilt for it, adapted from the inside out, and the vampire squid is a masterpiece of that rebuilding. Relative to the size of its body, it possesses the largest eyes of any animal on the planet, globes of pale blue that swell far beyond what seems reasonable for such a small creature. Those enormous eyes are not for beauty. They are precision instruments designed to gather every stray photon that wanders through the dark, squeezing meaning out of a world that offers almost no light at all. Darkness, though, is only one of the challenges. The layer of ocean this squid calls home is also one of the most oxygen-starved environments on Earth, a suffocating band sometimes called the oxygen minimum zone. In some places, the water here holds less than a 20th of the oxygen found near the surface. Most relatives of the vampire squid would perish quickly in such conditions, their bodies unable to draw enough breath to function. Yet this animal thrives where others cannot even survive. It manages this by slowing itself down almost to the pace of the water around it, running its body on a metabolism so reduced that it needs only a whisper of oxygen to keep going. It is, in a sense, a creature that has learned to live on almost nothing. Watching a vampire squid feed reveals just how far it has taken this philosophy of stillness. Rather than chasing prey, it barely swims at all. For most of its life, it simply drifts, carried along by the slow currents of the deep, conserving every scrap of energy. It saves that energy for the rare moments when danger arrives, and in those moments it transforms. What looked like a sluggish, floating shadow suddenly becomes quick and powerful, jetting away through the water while beating a pair of enlarged fins that resemble small wings. The animal that seemed half asleep an instant before can flee with surprising speed, then settle back into its patient, energy-saving drift once the threat has passed. The vampire squid has one more piece of theater in its repertoire, a behavior researchers have described as the pineapple posture. When something frightens it, an escape is not immediate. The squid folds its webbed arms up and back over its own body, inverting itself so that a row of soft, spine-like projections points outward in every direction. To a hungry predator, it must look like a bristling, thorny orb, a mouthful of danger not worth the risk. The performance is pure bluff. Those spines are harmless, more decoration than weapon, and the animal hiding within the folds is one of the least threatening hunters in the sea. In fact, calling it a hunter at all is a stretch, because the vampire squid does something no other member of its family is known to do. Despite the fearsome name and the vampire imagery, this creature drinks no blood and stalks no living prey. It does not attack, instead it survives on what the ocean throws away. Drifting down from the sunlit waters far above comes a gentle, constant snowfall of dead plankton, scraps of tissue, and tiny flecks of organic debris, a rain that biologists poetically call marine snow. The vampire squid extends long, thread-like filaments into the water and lets this snow settle onto them, catching the particles with sticky cells before drawing the collected material back to its mouth. It is a scavenger of the abyss, feeding on the leftovers of the world above, and among all the squids and octopuses known to science, it stands alone as the only one that refuses to kill for its meals. This makes it something of a quiet paradox, an animal dressed in the imagery of a monster while living the gentlest life imaginable, gathering crumbs from the dark and asking almost nothing of the world around it. This diet and the calm existence it allows is part of a much larger story because the vampire squid is not merely unusual among its living relatives. It is a survivor from an almost unimaginable depth of time. When scientists trace its lineage backward through the fossil record, they find creatures strikingly similar to it appearing hundreds of millions of years ago, long before dinosaurs walked the land. The body plan of this animal has barely changed across an expanse of time so vast it defies comprehension. In a very real sense, looking at a vampire squid today is like gazing through a living window into the ancient ocean, watching an animal that has outlasted mass extinctions and continental upheavals while remaining almost exactly the same. The reason it has changed so little is quietly profound. Evolution rewrites a species when the world around it shifts and demands new answers. But the deep, dark, oxygen-poor world the vampire squid inhabits has remained remarkably steady for an enormous stretch of Earth's history. The pressures that reshape life on the surface, the changing climates and shifting predators and endless competition barely reach into these stable depths. With so little forcing it to change, the vampire squid simply did not. It had already arrived at a solution so finely tuned to its environment that improvement was almost unnecessary. And so it held that shape through the ages, a near-perfect fit for a world that time seems to have forgotten. That idea of an environment so stable and so alien that it produces creatures unlike anything on the surface sits at the heart of nearly every great deep ocean discovery. In the darkness, scientists have found ecosystems thriving around volcanic vents, powered not by sunlight but by chemicals bleeding from the earth itself. They have found predators that lure their victims with glowing bait, fish that manufacture their own light, and communities of life clinging to conditions that should, by every rule we once believed, be utterly uninhabitable. Each discovery has quietly rewritten what biologists thought life required, pushing the boundaries of the possible a little further into the impossible. The vampire squid, drifting patiently in its lightless world, is one small ambassador of that larger revelation. For most of human history, the deep ocean was imagined as a barren, empty desert, a dead zone too hostile to hold anything but cold water and silence. What we have learned instead is that life is far more stubborn, more inventive, and more patient than we ever guessed. It finds a way to breathe where there is almost no oxygen, to see where there is almost no light, and to endure where nothing should endure at all. The vampire squid, harmless and ancient and quietly glowing in the dark, is proof that some of Earth's most remarkable stories are written not in the sunlit shallows, but in the deepest, blackest corners of our own planet, waiting in the abyss for us to finally look closely enough to understand them.